Hello, Lucy here. Are you a creative who's taken the road less travelled? Do you have a story that could inspire others? Well, I want to hear from you. Share your journey on the show and motivate our listeners to chase their dreams. Click the link in the show notes to register your interest or send me a message. And remember, if you are enjoying the show, then please head over to wherever you get your podcasts from and rate and review the show. Your feedback really matters. Thanks for listening. Stay wild. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Wilderness of Creativity, and today I'm calling all historians, educators and storytellers. This week I'm chatting to the incredibly talented Katie Smart, a performer, an educator and an all-round creative powerhouse. Katie brings history to life as Maid Marian with the Sherwood Outlaws, a medieval stunt troupe based in Nottingham. But that's not all. She also steps into a galaxy far, far away as Princess Leia in film, TV and cosplay appearances, and also works as an outdoor educator with Knott's Outdoors. In this episode, we talk about how we can go about making bold career moves, how Katie blends historical storytelling with live performance, and the creative world of cosplay and medieval reenactment. You can listen to this episode on all major streaming platforms and watch the full episode on YouTube. It feels like a lifetime ago, and it's so funny because my mum actually dropped off a couple of boxes of mine just today, and you will never guess what I found in there. Bearing in mind, I have no idea what was in these boxes.
Do I want to know what was in the box?
Well, I don't know if you can see this, but this is a program.
Midsummer Night's Dream. I still have that somewhere.
This is the program for those people who are listening. This is a program for a production of A Midsummer Night's Dream that Katie and I actually performed in alongside Adam Pownell,
our history teacher. I had to fall in love with Mr. James. Well, not literally.
Mr. James.
Not literally. But everyone fancied him at school, didn't they?
I know. Katie Smart, there you are. Do you know which role you played?
I do. I shared my role with Rachel Wilbraham. We both played Titania.
You did. And she's there in the programme. And Oberon was played by Sean Curran.
Shawnee, yes.
Lisa Bottomore.
Yes. I do still sometimes speak to Lisa.
Yeah.
Occasionally.
Yeah, I played Helena opposite Richard Dillon. So that really made me laugh. And then I found this beautiful picture of us.
Oh, wow.
I literally found this tonight before I started talking to you. Isn't that funny? I think that was our GCSE drama. Yeah, I looked very pensive, got my hand to my head, and it's all very serious.
My memory of you from school was playing the piano. That's what I always remember. And I always said as I got older, there's one thing I wish I'd always done. And I've told Rob, my other half, and I was like, there was a girl at our school called Lisa Colgan and she could play the piano. And I always used to be really jealous because she could play the piano. I never learned. I did many other things, but never learned the piano.
You know, I haven't played the piano in so long. My piano is actually at my mum's house and we're in the middle of renovating. But as soon as the hallway is ready, the piano is coming over. And I've been thinking about that a lot recently, actually. Where it all started, you know, and you've mentioned just now, it started back in school, didn't it? Because we were so creative.
My creativity, if you want to go way, way back, my mum and dad knew I was born to be a performer. Like my mum and dad never have gone on stage or sang or anything like that. And apparently when I was, I think 6, we were at a holiday park and there was a fancy dress competition. And I was fuming because I didn't have a costume. We didn't know about it. And apparently I disappeared. And then 5 minutes later turned up on stage with a sock tied around my head. Then a sock tied on my arm. And I'd got dirt from somewhere, took my shoes off and went on stage and announced that I'd come as a tramp. My mum was mortified, but I really wanted to be on
bless
stage, and
you.
this was like a 6. So yeah, I came second. So I did quite well.
Not bad for a pair of
I think
socks.
they felt sorry for me.
I came second. That's brilliant.
So that goes way, way back.
I mean, it's funny, isn't it, when you look back at those earlier memories and those moments that's, that really stick with you. And you've kind of come back to that younger self, haven't you? Just talk us through that journey.
So I kind of had 2 loves when I was at school, and I always remember finishing A levels and thinking, which path do I go? So obviously the acting career it's notoriously difficult. I know people who've moved to London to try and make it work. You've got to be so available for jobs. You end up getting another job to try and maintain your lifestyle, and then you're not available. And so I had a love of animals, which I got from my mum. So I kind of went the animal route, and then I worked at Cats Protection as a deputy manager. And I absolutely loved that job. I always grew up with animals, and we basically had our own, not a physical farm, but we had a lot of animals at home. So I kind of went that route. And then I went into veterinary for a little bit, because that was kind of a natural progression. But then I kind of came back to the love of teaching and acting. So I kind of thought, well, I didn't finish my acting degree. And my mum passed away when I was quite young, and that kind of put me on a different road. And then I thought, actually, I should go back and finish it. So I actually went back to finish my acting degree at Clarendon in Nottingham. And then I went on to do my PGCE so I could teach. So I've got 2 degrees. So I've got my BA Honours in Theatre Arts, and I did a lot in kind of, once I'd got both my degrees, I went into primary school teaching. So I actually taught at St Philip Neri. So I actually loved mainstream teaching. And around that, and kind of the time I was finishing my acting degree, I did a lot of film. I did some mainstream stuff. I went into musical theatre for quite a few years and performed with Healy Musical Theatre Company, and kind of loved the live performance. So I kind of came back to it, kind of went the animal route, and then came back to that whole love of acting and being characters. And then, as well as that, I started doing some performance children's party work. So I do a lot of well-known characters. So I've kind of done quite a lot in, like, later on. I kind of came back to it, and then obviously went out into outdoor education, which is where I work now. And then we set up our company, the Sherwood Outlaws. So quite a lot.
You have done quite a lot. It all feeds into the same thing, doesn't it? This love of creating characters and bringing the magic of theatre to other people. If you think about, and children, really, isn't it? It's about sort of engaging them and making history and film and all of these wonderful stories accessible for children. Why did you decide to come out of teaching then?
Teaching is a hard profession. I love it. And I take my hat off to anyone who teaches, because I think a lot of the time, from the outside looking in, people don't realise the pressures and the time restrictions and just the workload that teachers have to deal with. And you're there for the kids. So, when I was teaching, I did a job share, but, I basically worked full time on a job share. And I adored having a class, but I kind of felt some of the paperwork side, some of the data side, everybody knows who's a teacher, you've got those added pressures. And for me, when the job came up in outdoor education, Mr. Lewis, the headmaster at St Philip Neri, obviously I went to speak to him, and he said if someone had written a job for me, so a job specification, acting, playing a role, teaching about history, nature, because we cover a big area of education through Knots Outdoors, which is who I work for now in outdoor education, which is part of the county council. But he said literally the job spec was me. So he said, I completely get why you're going for this role, but it was a very competitive job. I mean, there were 75 teachers and other people that applied for one job. And I got to the interview stage where they interviewed 5 people. And it was
Wow.
actually, interestingly, it was my love of acting, my acting background, and also my will to become a character and basic, because I play Lady Marion most days. Over half our school trips that come to Sherwood Forest where I work, they come to learn about Robin Hood, and it was actually that cinched the job for me, because there were other people that were very qualified with forest school. I mean, I didn't have my forest schools at the time, who had a wider outdoor education background, but it was actually my acting that got me the job.
You might feel like it's going to take a little bit longer to get where you want to get to, but if you know that in yourself, don't you, Katie, when it's the right thing, people might be questioning you and saying, well, why are you doing that? It's never going to go anywhere. But in yourself, don't you? If it's meant to be, you got to keep working at it.
Yeah, I think it's always good to have a backup. I mean, some people say, oh, don't give up on, what you want to do, and you shouldn't, but always have something. Like in my head, I thought, great, I've got my acting degree, and I do still do, we've done quite a few things through the Sherwood Outlaws. We get contacted. We were on Susan Coleman. We've been on Great British Menu this year. And we've got something else coming up, which I can't disclose at the moment because we've not filmed it yet.
Oh,
So
it's exciting.
those opportunities have come up, but I thought to myself, if I've got my teaching, if it doesn't happen, or if I need to support myself in a better way, that is it's not a backup plan. It's kind of an alternate. It supports what I do, so it's not kind of settling for second best. It really did support and allow me to do what I do now, which I'm very fortunate to have the job that I do, and they don't come up very often. So,
And I suppose it's part of the plan, isn't it? It's part of the path. I was speaking to Maria Terry, and she is a theatre designer working as a freelancer for many, many years. COVID hit, and she decided that she was going to go into full-time teaching to support the work that she was doing already. And it's a similar thing, isn't it? There's a tendency to feel like we have to do either or as a creative.
and I think some people feel that there's a timeline on you.
Yes.
I
Oh
kind
my
of feel
gosh,
like,
yes.
I mean, when you're in your 20s, you don't know who you are, and then you get to your 30s and you think, don't really. I mean, I've changed so many times that, my path in my personal life has changed me, and, I've gone through quite a lot of trauma actually. So I think you don't really know. You evolve so many times, but all of those evolvements lead you to who you are. And I think that it's never, you can do whatever you want to do at any age, as long as you've got a passion for it and you love doing it.
I think that's a really, really powerful message. And the thing is, though, Katie, is that, we don't get to our age without having gone through things, having experienced trauma. And a question, did you find, when you were experiencing those challenges, that your creativity led you through them, or did you find that it was really tricky to access that creative flow in
Um,
those moments?
it did help. I think there was initial traumas. You kind of have that period of shutdown where you're like, I've got to get through this however I get through it. For me, music is always a very supportive outlet. And last year, don't know if you see the picture up here, this is my horse, Sir George. He was attacked in his field and we actually lost him through a dog attack. So that was a
Oh.
really traumatic experience that happened.
Yeah.
You know, he was always here as well. All the
Oh.
horses are on this.
And you're jumping with him as well.
Yeah, we used to barrel race. So,
Ah.
but music, and I'm a very, I'm a very, I won't say spiritual person, but I'm a great believer in the power of a positive mind and manifestation. And I mean, my other half is completely he thinks it's a load of rubbish, which is fine. You know, but for me, I've always kind of returned to that thing. So although in a trauma in the beginning, you kind of shut yourself down to however you need to cope with it, but then you do return to that creative side and that sort of drive. I mean, through that trauma, I've actually started writing a book about the journey and things like that. So you get, you know, there's
Wow.
always something creative that comes out of, you know, a trauma, or you know, you learn from it. You know, so at the time it's hard, but
Is the book sort of a memoir?
it's kind of about the loss of George, but also the journey, kind of, because I have another horse pie now, and it's kind of that journey. It'll obviously speak to an equestrian audience probably more than, you know, sort of acting and musical theatre and stuff. But it's about that journey of rediscovering relationships and connections. And I mean, horses are sentient beings and they are mirrors of emotion. And it's been an interesting journey having Pie, um, but going through that with the loss of George, because it was a huge loss for us. And obviously it was an unexpected loss. I've lost horses before through old age, but yeah, I've always loved writing though. You know, I've got
I know you have.
always got old, you know, I used to have a typewriter when I was a, you know, little kid, and I used to sit and type what I thought were novels, about 12 pages. And then, but I've still got some of those. So I've always had a book in me somewhere. So we'll see.
Well, I'm sure it would. I mean, are you gonna self-publish?
Yes, I think so. I've spoken to a few publishers about representation and kind of the correct publishers for equestrian stuff. But again, horses is another outlet I've always had through my life from my mum again. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see where it takes me.
You know, it's about how do you knit together all of these different identities, these versions of yourself through the creative work that you're doing. Because I know you do the reenactments. Do you want to talk a little bit about the Sherwood Outlaws and the work that you do with Rob and how all that works?
The Outlaws, we class ourselves as medieval stunt performance team, because reenactment, the reenactors are amazing, but they do everything 100% accurate. So we've got many friends who are reenactors, and that from their costume to the food they eat to how they cook, and they do everything as it would have been done in the times, which takes a massive amount of dedication. So we have strong elements of historical accuracy. But obviously our company, the Sherwood Outlaws, was kind of born through my job with Knots Outdoors. So I wear two hats. So my Knots Outdoors hat is education, and the Sherwood Outlaws is more performance. Although we obviously educate at the same time, but we class ourselves more as a performance team. So we have historical content, but obviously we're based on a legend, so we have a bit more free reign to bring in you know, our artistic license on things, and a little bit more of the magic and the mystery of the myth of Robin Hood. So Rob, my other half, he moved up here about 7 years ago now. Came up from London, and ironically, he used to dress as Robin Hood when he was a little boy. He loved Robin Hood. So I've got a photo somewhere. I'll have to send it to you. I think it was Susan Coleman used it on her show, and it's a picture of him dressed as Robin Hood, and he was obsessed with Robin Hood. And likewise with myself, you know, I kind of grew up near Sherwood Forest, and, you know, Maid Marian was such an iconic role, you know, kind of. I remember I think at primary school we had a Robin Hood week, and I spent most of the week dressed as Robin Hood, weirdly. You know, I wanted to tomboy, and I spent one day dressed as Marion and hated it and went back to Robin Hood for the final day. So I don't know why. It was just who knows. But he when he relocated to kind of when we got together, he relocated here from London. And then the opportunity arose for him to be Robin Hood. So we literally are the living couple, an embodiment of Robin and Marion. So we do our educational work through Knots Outdoors, and he works for Knots Outdoors as well. And he is a massive historian. So any period of history, he's got really good knowledge. So he teaches, World War II, Vikings, Saxons, Romans. We teach, a lot. But then our company, the Sherwood Outlaws, is the fun side. So we do medieval combat. I do horseback archery. I've had a go at jousting. So we bring the legend to life through live performance, storytelling, live events, and we travel nationally. And just recently, the last 2 years, we are twinned with a forest in Normandy.
I did see that actually on your Facebook.
And it's the Arthurian Centre at Chateau de Comper, and their legend is King Arthur. So we've actually twinned forests, but also this year we meshed the two legends together. So it's been a really amazing creative experience, and they're coming to us in 2026 for the Robin Hood Festival. So they're going to perform with us at the Robin Hood Festival. So
how amazing is that?
Been a really cool twinning, that one.
Yeah, and how enriching as well, bringing all of that history and the storytelling together and the characters. And so do you write all of your own scripts as well?
Yeah, so we base some of our arena shows will have elements of the folklore and the well-known sort of literature that you can find about Robin Hood. And then a lot of our shows, we write the scripts and kind of we base the characters on what is already there, but we also have our own spin on some of the characters. So we do creatively create the content, create the music and things for the shows. So we're always busy coming up with new ideas, because we do repeat shows occasionally, but at the Robin Hood Festival every year, we bring new arena shows every year where some of the performers that come back, they will just reuse the show that they. I mean, everybody loves the shows; they don't care. But our sort of unique selling point is that we do bring original storylines, to the work we do. So it's really cool, the Robin Hood legend, because there have been Robins all through my childhood, and that I remember, and a couple of them I've met as they've got older, and I was like, I remember you as Robin Hood, which they always get really embarrassed about.
Do you know what? It sounds so playful and so just so imaginative. You just get to play, don't you, in the forest and like children.
Yeah, I think sometimes I kind of go to work and think I'm getting paid to do this. So we do teach a lot of the historical content. So we tailor what we do dependent on the age group that's coming to us. So your younger children, nursery, key stage 1, they generally want the legend. They want the myth. They want magic. They want to believe that you are Marion from 800 to 1,000 years ago. Although we do tell them that we aren't the original characters, but we are descendants of the characters, and that there's always a Robin and a Marion there to keep the stories alive, and they could be the next Robin and Marion, which
I love
some
that.
of the children really love, the possibility that they could be made Marion when they're older. And then we obviously, with the older children that come out, we do historical timelines. We do a bit more of the history of the period, but also who is Robin Hood? There are real men that the stories are based on, that you can find facts about. So we go on that journey with them and, debate about, should outlaws steal? And we bring in a bit more about, say, our modern world, thinking Robin Hood's story fits any timeline, because in our world today, we know there are people that have no voice, people who need someone to fight for them. And we teach them that is why Robin Hood still exists today. The story is still passed on because he's a beacon of hope for people. So it's playful, it's creative, it's magical, but also it is very poignant for the children when they come because they learn about why it's still relevant today. It's not just a tree in a forest. He's been around for over 1,000 years now.
Carl and I saw online actually that the tree, the major oak, is having some serious restoration work done to it, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah, I mean the oak is old. For an ancient oak, there's a saying 300 years to grow, 300 years to live, 300 years to die. So around 900 years, is roughly the expectancy. I mean, I'm not an expert on, the rangers at the RSPB and elsewhere do amazing jobs. And I think a lot of people, when they come to Sherwood, they don't realise the money they pay for car parking, the money they pay in the gift shop, 90% of that goes back to looking after the forest, and they do a lot of work with the oak because there's only specialists and certain people who can work on the oak. So it's not looking as rich this year. It's still alive. There's leaf coverage. They've done a massive rehydration and watering program. They've been working over the last sort of 3 to 5 years on the root system. They've put in trenching systems in. They've been working on the pH of the soil. And again, on Visit Sherwood, if you're interested in that side of how they're caring for the oak, there's details of all the work that they've been doing to try and, support the oak for as long as possible. The truth is nobody knows how long it will survive for, and it's a very old ancient. It's been standing there for, they think it's around 1,200 years old now. So I'm quite fortunate to talk there, and I'm there as the characters, and it is still magical. Even when it's gone, it is still such an icon. And the size and the stories and the people it's seen is that is the magic of the place as well.
It really is. And when you're talking about sort of the icons within this world, this story, what is it about Maid Marian that you love?
I love her journey because I think if you look at her through literature, early stories, she didn't exist. Some people think she was brought in as a love interest to spice the story up. But I think she's had a real journey through the stories. Some people portrayed her as a damsel in distress. She always was fainting and needed rescuing, and uh, but I think the Marion that I portray is one that everyone can identify with. She fights with Robin. She's not scared to pick up the sword. She is based on she's based on someone who can look after herself, but also she is still in love with Robin. I think sometimes we try and eradicate that need for a male partner. Yes, she can do it on her own, but she would prefer to do it with Robin by her side. And I think we forget that in our society today. Sometimes we fight too much for it to be, I'm a female heroine and I don't need anybody to help me. The story of Robin and his outlaws, they all needed each other, and without each other, they wouldn't have been able to do what they do. So she is she's now a kick-ass, female heroine that she can give as good as she gets. But I think she's based. Some people think on a lady called Matilda Fitzwalter, who was the daughter of Robert Fitzwalter, and there's a grave down in Little Dunmow in Essex. And her story is very tragic, but it does kind of mirror sort of Marion. They think Matilda was an old version of the name Marion. And she fell in love with a mysterious knight at a joust at her birthday. And then, her story kind of follows falling in love, and, King John wanted to pursue her and marry her, and she had no interest, and her father said no. And in the end, she's poisoned by the king. And they say even in death, she remained beautiful. So, and
Oh,
that's a real person that's based on. So, I just
what a
think
beautiful story.
she's a cool character.
She is cool. She is cool, and you must get to wear some amazing costumes, but I can imagine them being quite heavy.
Yeah, again, because of our artistic license, we use historical costumes. So if I'm performing, though, I'm normally wearing cotton or dresses that move, and there is some aesthetics there. A lot of the things that we do in the shows we wear because they look good, and that's the artistic license. It's the same in any of the films. Some of the things you see Robin Hood doing, you never would have done in medieval times, or it wouldn't have been possible, but they want to create a story that's exciting and people remember. So, but all the Marion costumes are mine. So I've got a costume room upstairs,
Oh, how
which is full of
wonderful.
stuff.
Full of stuff. I mean, a walk-in wardrobe full of Maid Marian costumes, and I should
Yeah.
imagine some cosplay in there as well, right?
Yeah. So I don't know if you remember Return to Oz.
I do.
Do you remember the lady who had all the different heads? Quite scary at the time. So if my costume room is a little bit, not that I've got heads up there, but I have polystyrene wig heads with around 20 different wigs and things on. So it's a little bit reminiscent of Return to Oz. So yeah, I've got a lot of cosplay, a lot of Marion, and we do Star Wars charity works. I've got all of Princess Leia's stuff up there as well.
So how did you get into the cosplay scene then?
So cosplay, that was actually before I became Marion. So I went to a Comic-Con and thought, this is quite cool. I've always liked being another character or dressing up. And we decided to I think my first ever cosplay was Jyn Erso from Star Wars. I may have had one or two before that, possibly a princess or two. And I just love the costumes, love the creativity, and also choosing characters that kind of resonate with you as a person. You kind of want to do fun characters, and then I kind of started doing a little bit of charity cosplaying with a group called the Superheroes, and I used to play Wonder Woman with them. So I just do still have my Wonder Woman
I was
costume.
going to say, I've seen many a photograph of you dressed up as Wonder Woman. Do you
Yeah.
just put it on when you're doing the dishes? I'd be like going out to get the petrol in it. It's the excitement of becoming other characters, and I won't pretend that I know Star Wars because I don't. But I should imagine that you do meet so many different people at events like that, and yeah, just being in that room must be so electric.
I think it's community because
Yeah.
I mean our Star Wars group, we're part of a group called the East Midlands Garrison, and that's how I actually met Rob, my partner.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah, and ironically we play Han Solo opposite Princess Leia, so we do Robin and Marion, but we're kind of the Robin and Marion of the Star Wars world as well, being Han and Leia. So but we are that garrison as a family. The work we do, we raise money for PASIC, which is a Nottingham-based cancer charity for children, and they support families that are going through difficult times, if they need
Mm,
respite care, if children are wanting to have their final wish granted and things. So everything we do with them is non-profit. And I've
yeah.
been with the garrison, I think, about 7 years now. But we are a family. The people who costume with that group, all our costumes are screen accurate. And we've been to some great places. We've done concerts. We did Peterborough Cathedral a couple of years ago with big Star Wars exhibit there. We did Star Wars Celebration 2 years ago. And it's a family. But when you meet the other cosplayers and the fans, they have a united love of that genre. And everyone's supportive. Anyone can cosplay. I mean, what we do is a little bit more. We don't class it as professional because we're not paid, but we cosplay characters that suit us as people. So when we go to events, we do look like the characters. And like generalized cosplay, you can be whoever you want to be. Go and have fun, dress up whoever you want to be, and everyone is supportive and they just love it. So it's a really big community, and it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah. And it must bring so much enjoyment to the relationship as well, because you're both sort of invested in the characters and this way of sort of spending your time.
Yeah.
And I think so often, when you're exploring a creative venture, sometimes you don't quite align with maybe your partner, or your friends. Your friends are into different things, and so it can feel quite isolating in some situations, because you're like, well, I'm over here doing this and you're over there doing that, and it can create some tension. But it's lovely that you get to share that experience, that together as the community, but you two as well.
Yeah.
um
I think for us, it's a rarity that we're not in costume. So having a night on the sofa in our pajamas, or a Saturday where we're in normal clothes, is like a luxury for us. I mean, we love costuming, but for us, if I wasn't in a costume, Rob would be like, "Are you okay? You've got costume in this weekend." So when we go on holiday, or when we do have, like, the winter is our quieter period, although we do some murder mysteries in the winter, and we do enjoy just being us as well. We're us when we costume, but it's we do have a love of, we share lots of creative things, which is, I think, is hard, if, like you say, if you've got someone who doesn't get it, or thinks it's a bit weird, or would never dream of, dressing up. I think it can be hard because it's not normal for that person.
and do you still sing?
I do, not as much. When I did my musical theatre, I played some lead roles in that, and that was amazing. And I do occasionally sing with the Outlaws, and I sing through my work that I do for the children's parties. So I sing a lot of well-known songs. I won't mention the company that they belong to. So yeah, I sing weekly, but I don't sing professionally or anything. I love a bit of karaoke still.
Oh gosh, I used to love karaoke. What I'm hearing is that this is so much part of the fabric of your life. When you're trying to balance, I'm going to say, like, a normal job of teaching, or whatever you're doing, veterinary nurse, or whatever it is, when you're trying to kind of infuse your life with some creativity, or a hobby, it can be quite difficult at first, but it seems to me like it all comes together quite nicely, and it's the foundation of everything, rather than something that overlays over the top.
Yeah, I think I'm fortunate because of what I do as my day job. It's I get to be creative every day. I'm teaching every day. We do teach other things. We do orienteering, den building, and sensory adventures, art in the environment. So I'm still very much a teacher, but I get to teach all of the stuff that I'm interested in, all of the fun stuff. So I think I get to be creative in all areas of my life. So for me, it's almost the opposite, because I have a lot of creativity. Sometimes it's nice just to be, when you've got a day where you can just be without. I mean, I love being creative and sharing, characters and the passion. I think I've been fortunate that I've ended up doing something that I love as a job. And it is still something that I love doing. I've been in outdoor ed for about 8 years now. And I loved mainstream teaching, but this was the job for me.
And that head teacher was right to encourage you.
I think there's a danger of waiting. You think it's like when people, when they're going into acting, when do you actually call yourself an actor? That's the big question. You are, as soon as, you start that journey, you are an actor. It doesn't matter what you've done, or how much you were paid, or, that kind of stuff, but I think people sit and wait, and then suddenly, they start hitting later life and thinking, "Oh, I wish I'd done that." You can kind of sit there sometimes and go, "Oh, this isn't the right time," and you sit and wait, and then that's it. The opportunity's gone. But I think some of the losses I've had in my life have kind of given me the courage to kind of go, no, I'm going to do that, because we don't know how long we're here for. We don't know what's around the corner, and we don't know if this is the only goat you get, dependent on your own view of, life and stuff like that. So I just think if you want to do it and you can, then you should go for it 100%.